Hello, welcome to Java Programming Tutorials, Chapter 13, Part 4, Recursive Function, brought to you by Ankpro Technologies. My name is Harish. So in this session, we are going to learn about the recursive function in Java. So first let us understand what you mean by recursive function. So a method that calls itself is called a recursive function. I repeat, any method which call itself is called a recursive function. And what is the advantage of using the recursive function is it makes the code compact, but the other thing is other side of the recursive function is it makes the code compact, but it is very complex to understand when you're working with the recursive function. So these are the things we have to keep in mind when we are working with the recursive function, and have a syntax for the recursive function, how it looks. So first we have to specify the return type, then the method name, and the code what we want to execute, then that we have to specify within the code block, and again we have to call this method name within this curly braces. So whenever I call this function, these set of lines which are present before this method name will get execute, and later this method will be called again. This is called the recursive function. So what's happening here right now is this method will call itself internally. So that type of functions we call it as recursive functions. So let me show you a demo of it. So to understand that one, so let me start with the simple basic example. So let me jump into Eclipse, and here I have a project called recursive function and have a class called sample.java. So what I'll do right now is let me define one static method, static void print. So I'm going to this is my print method. So in the print method I'm going to just tell like system dot out print ln. Now I'm going to print as hello recursive function. And now what I'll do is, since it is a static method, I can call it directly. So I'll call this method. And now when I execute this code, it's going to print allow recursive function. So now the thing, let me go back to presentation and let me show you. So recursive function, my method looks similar like this, but the thing is I have to call this method name inside that code block. So that's what I'm going to do right now. What is my method name? This is my method name. I'll copy this, and after the execution of this sentence I'm going to call that again. So when I click on this, observe, it is going to execute. It's executing that recursive function infinite times. So this is what a simple example to make you understand like what is recursive function. So here the method name is print, and I'm calling that method name again in this code block. So any method which again this method is calling itself inside this code block. So this is called a recursive function. So now let me show you a simple example of a recursive function by taking the factorial example. So now what I'll do is let me remove this, and let me remove this too. So now let me explain you about the recursive function with a factorial example. So we all know like how to calculate the factorial. So now let me show you like how to do it. Public static. So we all know like how to calculate the factorial of a number. Static and int. I'll take factorial. So inside that I'm going to take a variable int n. Here it's a factorial, and we have to add a return statement. That's the reason it's going to get error. But we all know like how to calculate the factorial. First I'll tell like if user enters the number as 1, so if that n is equal to 1, or let me take some variable like perfect meaning like num. If num equal to 1, then what it has to do is it has to return. It has to return 1, because the factorial of 1 is 1 itself. And if user enters any other number other than that, what it has to do is it has to return the factorial of that particular number. So what I'll do is I'll call that factorial method factorial, and I'm going to tell like num minus 1. okay, that is n into, or sorry, num into factorial of this number. So now what I'll do is I'll, okay, to be perfect, let me add this within the common brackets too. Okay, fine. So now what I'll do is I'll call this method there in the main method. It's a static method, so I can call it directly. System dot out dot print ln. So here I'm going to tell like factorial of 5 is, or let me calculate the factorial of 6 is, okay, it's plus of the method factorial of, I have to pass a variable there, so I'll pass it as 6. So now when I click on this, you can observe the factorial of this is 6 is 720. So this is how we can calculate the factorial, but we can observe very clearly what we are trying to do is we are trying to create a recursive method which call itself. So if the number whatever we enter here is 1, okay, what happens is it just returns the factorial of 1 is 1, and so at this point of time this code has been executed. If the number is more than 1, then okay, what's going to happen is this piece of code is going to execute. So the number is 6 into factorial num minus 1, so that is 6 into factorial num minus 1, that is 6 minus 1, it's 5. Okay, so again this piece of code is going to execute again and again. Okay, this is called the recursive function, and finally it's going to calculate the factorial of 6 as 720. So this is, I hope you understood like what is factorial function, which call itself, that we can call this factorial function. I hope you understood, like I have shown you simple 2 demos, like one is the infinite thing, like how the paragraph executed like infinite times, and we can do that with the help of with the help of recursive function, and calculating the factorial also we can do it with the help of recursive function. So I hope you understood. Okay, the advantage of using the recursive function is it makes the code compact, but on the other hand, like it's very complex to understand. The code looks more complex. Okay, that is the disadvantage of it. And finally, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel Ankpro Training. You can also like our Facebook page visiting this URL. You can also follow us on Twitter. For further reference, refer our website. We're on LinkedIn too. Last but not least, please don't forget to give the feedback. Thank you. Have a great day.